Last video, I built a round system from scratch. It kind of worked. My game is made up of a lot of systems from many different games. And the round system is mainly taken from fighting games. But the round system in its current iteration is not enough. It was working, but you couldn't see any of it. And that is exactly what I will work on for this video. Hello there, I'm Mysteries. I'm building a 2D multiplayer fighting game in Unreal Engine 5 while taking 2 months to release a part 2 for a system that has long been finished. One quick thing before we get into it. At the end of the last video, the round timer existed but you couldn't see it. It was running, counting down, firing end round when it hit 0. All of that was working. I just had no way to display it. Everything I'm building today plugs into that timer, so if something feels familiar, that's why. But for testing purposes, I actually need to see it. One of the invisible systems every fighting game has to solve is the camera. Nobody thinks about it as a player, but every developer has to make a deliberate choice. Street Fighter uses what's called a camera window. The camera stays mostly fixed and only starts moving when a player gets pushed towards the edge of the screen. It follows the action horizontally but never zooms. The stage just scrolls. Both players are always visible because the stage design is built around keeping them close. Brawlhalla, and before it Super Smash Bros, take a completely different approach. The camera constantly tracks the average position of all living players and zooms out dynamically as they get further apart. The further apart you are, the smaller everything gets on the screen. Mortal Kombat sits somewhere in between. Fixed zoom, fixed perspective, but the camera pans horizontally to keep both fighters framed. The stage has hard boundaries to stop players from walking out of frame entirely. My approach is closer to Brawlhalla. Midpoint tracking, smooth movement, clamped boundaries. No dynamic zoom yet. That might come later. The way I built it is using a separate actor called the camera rig. It's not attached to either player. It lives on its own and its entire job is to watch both players every single frame and decide where to be. Every tick it runs a function called calculate location. First it finds the enemy using the same actor tag system from the last video. Then it finds the player. It gets both of their positions, then it calculates the midpoint between them. Rather than just averaging the X position, I use actor bounds, which gives me the full physical space each character occupies, not just their origin point. This means the midpoint is always properly centered between the two characters, even when they're at different sizes. Then the result gets clamped, so the camera can't drift beyond the edge of the stage no matter how far apart the player gets. And finally, it moves towards that target using Vinter. Vinter just means move towards this point smoothly at this speed, don't teleport. The result is a camera that drifts naturally between positions instead of snapping. On paper, elegant. In practice, nothing. Or well, definitely not the intended result. It seemed like the camera was catering to my actor only, but in truth I originally made two separate dummies. One was supposed to have a chase function and the other one was supposed to stay still. I was using them for different tests, but the problem was that their names were almost identical and I inserted the wrong one. That was the camera. I'll revisit it when multiplayer comes into picture. For now, the round was running, but there was nothing on screen to show for it. So I created a new widget with 3 text elements. A timer, a score, and a banner in the middle for things like fight or round over, and whatever else needed announcing mid-match. Connecting the score was simple, the game mode already tracks round wins. Set score just formats that into something readable and pushes it to the widget. The banner needed a bit more thought. Show banner takes 2 things, a message and a duration. Before it does anything else, it clears any existing timers. Same receipt logic from the last video. Cancel the old timer before starting a new one, otherwise 2 banners firing in quick succession would create 2 timers both trying to hide the same element at different times. And one of them would always win in the wrong way. Set a text, make it visible, start the countdown to hide it. Done. Now the timer. I added a rich text block to the HUD. Wired up the timer value, hit play, and that appeared. Rich text blocks support markup. Bold text, different colors, different sizes, but to know what any of that actually means, they needed a reference table called a decorator, a dictionary that maps each tag to a style. If you don't set one up and pass it plain text anyway, it doesn't gracefully ignore the formatting system. It just runs the text through it anyway. Finds tags it can't resolve and renders the raw markup characters directly onto the screen. I didn't need custom styling for a timer. I just needed simple text. Up until now, I honestly thought that rich text and normal text are the same thing. Camera sorted, HUD sorted. It was starting to look more like a proper round was being played. But between the rounds, the game needs to know what to do next. And what it does next is the part that will make this game worth replaying. Every time you play, you get a random selection of abilities and augments to choose from. Pick a secondary class and the pool changes entirely. Pick your main class again and it changes differently. Two people playing the same match will never build the same character, and that only works if the game knows exactly when to ask you to choose and what kind of choice to put in front of you. That's where the phase scheduler comes in. Between rounds, when a player picks an ability or an augment, those choices need to happen in a specific order, and that order might change depending on the round. Round 1 might be class selection, round 2 might be ability pick, round 3 might be augment selection. The game needs to know what comes next without me hard coding every possible sequence, while at the same time being able to easily switch the order of what comes next in case the progression of your character feels off. So I built a phase scheduler. The core of it is an enum, the named list I mentioned last video, with values for each possible phase: ability select, augment select, and class select, for now. Think of it like a playlist. You open Spotify, queue up your songs in whatever order you want, and hit play. The app doesn't care what the songs are, it just plays the next one, then the next, then loops back to the start. If you want to change the order, you drag a song up and down. The player itself doesn't change, just a list. That's exactly what the phase scheduler is. Instead of songs, the list holds phases like ability selection, augment selection, and class selection. The game mode reads the next item, figures out what it is, and then sends both players to the right screen. Once they're both done, it moves to the next item on the list. If I want round 3 to have an augment pick instead of an ability pick, I change one value in the list and nothing else moves. Slowly but surely, this is starting to look like something. There are definitely things left to improve, but I'm pretty proud of what I've learned so far. Like I mentioned last video, the round system was one of the more exciting things I've worked on. Game development has its ups and downs. Some parts, like the health bar, are easy to get through because everyone has solved them before. The documentation exists, the tutorials exist, you just build it. And then there are some parts of a game that players never think about while playing, and yet someone had to sit down and figure out how to make them work. Those are the ones that stick with me. What comes next is a bit different. I hit a point that I think every solo developer eventually hits, where you stop and question everything. The progress, the direction, whether you're even the right person for certain tasks. It's not a fun place to be, but I think it's worth being honest about. And I'll share more of that in the next video. But before I go, what parts of a game do you think players most take for granted? Let me know down below.